You're listening to Health Innovators, a podcast and video show about the leaders, influencers, and early adopters who are shaping the future of healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. Roxy Mooney. Hello, Health Innovators. Welcome back to the show. So on today's episode, I have Martin Pazzani with me. He is the chairman and founder of Activate Brain and Body. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Thanks, Dr. Roxy. I'm really happy to be here with you.
And let me not forget to mention that you are also the author of The Secrets of Aging Well.
Thank you.
So we'll talk about your book a little bit.
It was a passion of mine. I'm a career hiker and climber, and also an entrepreneur. And it kind of merges both of my worlds in the context of, I truly believe hiking is the fountain of youth. And also coming from the fitness business, I also believe it gives you an extra kind of fitness that you can't get from a gym. So person talked me into writing the book, and here we are.
So do you have anything else that you want to share with our audience about your background or about what you're doing these days that just might kind of set the tone for the context of our conversation today?
Well, part of what I'm doing both professionally in my company and with the book is I'm a real advocate of slowing down the pace with which you retire. I think people should continue working if they can. I think it keeps you young. It keeps your brain sharp. I'm an anti-ager. I believe in the longevity economy. I believe that we can still be productive at a much longer than people traditionally think in business. I'm about to turn 65. I think I'm going to work for 10 more years at least, maybe longer. Yep. I've crossed paths with some 80-year-old executives recently, and I want to be one of those. So anti-aging is kind of the theme for me, and that's what Activate is about, and that's what the book is about.
So I think that's really interesting, and there's so much for us to unpack here today. I'm really excited to talk with you. It's slightly different than what we normally do on our episodes, but I think the audience is going to really appreciate this. So the first thing that I want you to kind of share with us is, what do you mean by the longevity economy?
Well, I didn't coin that term. That's been going around for about 10 years, but clearly what's happening is the population is aging. And right now we're in a position in the US economy where half of the population is over age 50 and about 2/3 of the capital and the income. So you may notice in most categories, they skew young. Fitness business skews incredibly young. They're catering still to 20 and 30-year-olds, which is fine, but half of the potential clients are 50 plus.
Except for that small little silver sneaker, right?
Yeah, well, that was the start of it. And I give them great credit for positioning themselves. They were the first ones there. But, it's endemic in the U.S. economy, not just the fitness business. Look, I think the average age of a Google employee is 28. Apple, same way. Madison Avenue ad agencies are proud of the fact that their average age is 30. And what they're missing, and there's numerous reasons for it. It's not pure ageism. Older employees tend to be more expensive. But what they're missing is the wisdom that comes from the years of experience you have. I'm proud of the fact that I have 42 years of business experience, and it's in various categories, in various roles, and various functions. And I feel my brain tells me I'm 40, but the years tell me I'm going to be 65. So that seems like a really good position to be in, because I have all the wisdom of the years, and I'm still energetic and fired up entrepreneur. So a lot of corporations should rethink their youth movement and start bringing back people of wisdom and experience. They can solve problems fast because they've seen it before.
Well, it's interesting. One of the things that I've had another guest say a while back out of the Silicon Valley. So they have a tendency to have a lot of younger entrepreneurs. Right. But they said when you're raising capital, you want to have someone gray on your team.
Yeah, I got that one covered. No question. But it's funny. Our company, we did this by design. By the way, I know you like to talk about pivoting. This is actually Activate 4.0. We've been doing this for 10 years. And this is our fourth pivot. And one of the things I realized at Activate 3.0 was that I was probably not the best person to be the CEO. I'm the chairman. I'm the founder, and I got the vision. But I needed some energy into the company. So we recruited a chairman and a CEO who were late 30s and their 40s. And in fact, we span 5 decades as a senior management team of 10 people.
Wow,
so we got our youngest guy is 28. Our oldest is 74. And the perspective you get from that interaction is, I'm really thrilled about it. It's amazing how we think as a group of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there could be some folks that are watching and listening to the show that are like, okay, well, how does this fit into like what the show is all about? So I just want to kind of put that out there. When I, started to get to know you and started to dig into your book, I was just blown away about how your story and the key topics that you're discussing are just like tons of metaphors for entrepreneurship. So there's a few things that I wrote down that I wanted to like talk about today. So let's just talk about, what do you mean by forget FOMO, which we all know, fear of missing out, right? And then what did you say? And then
joy of being outside, Jobo.
Yes, Jobo. Yeah. So joy of being outside. Tell us about that.
Well, that was kind of just a weird afterthought. I was struggling to write a chapter about why the mental and the psychological benefits. And I don't know why FOMO got into my head. I guess I was on Facebook or something. And everybody, you get on Facebook and everybody's got FOMO to some extent.
Right. Yep.
So I in my bio somewhere, it says, I bring joy to the presentation because I'm a climber, and it's really a deeply emotional experience for me. And for some reason, it just popped into my head. There's the joy of being outside, and what that gives you when you do it. And that's one of the reasons I'm encouraging people with the book is right now, especially now, we've all been sequestered and socially distanced for a while. And I think there's a human need to be outside, not only, just out in your driveway, but certainly amongst nature in the woods. And you see this growing mindfulness movement. You see the forest bathing is becoming a thing, and it does improve your spirit. In fact, there's research that shows being outside raises your serotonin level. And as you know, serotonin is an antidepressant. So that's where the joy comes from. When you build into that, the exertion of hiking and climbing, and you achieve a goal, finish a trail, get to the top of something, there is a powerful feeling that comes over you that you've accomplished something. And that spills over into your everyday life. It gives you confidence. Yeah. And you gradually, in my case, you get to tolerate and be comfortable with risk. And I think that's a key issue for entrepreneurs. We're risk takers, right? Yeah. So the more comfortable you are with real risk, life-threatening risk, entrepreneurial risk doesn't seem so risky, actually. It's just, you get embarrassed or you fail or you lose money. You're not going to get killed in a startup usually, right? So,
right.
So willingness to accept risk and how to deal with it and cope with it is what you get from being outside. And there's a joy that comes with that. You have to like what you're doing. And
so when you're talking about like hiking and, getting to the mountaintop, I mean, it just, to me, I just think that's like, I immediately think business. I immediately think leadership, entrepreneurship. So, from your perspective, how do those parallels work together in your own personal journey?
Yeah, well, they're parallel. I can't separate them at this point. I think I come from a big corporate background, Fortune 100 companies. My career as a consumer packaged goods brand manager. I worked on Madison Avenue as a management consultant, big companies. I was known as an entrepreneur at the time, which is a common term, right? But that's not really risky. It's a safe way to be an entrepreneur. And I guess as I got older, I started to say, I'm capable of more. I want to do something beyond fixing other people's brands or managing brands or doing something that is kind of a cookie cutter job where you can be replaced by someone else. I want to do the new and the different. By nature, I like to explore. So what better career than to be a serial entrepreneur? And so, I've done 5 startups at this point, and that's what I really am. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur. And it's because in my personal life, I'm a climber, and now I've toned that down a little bit. I'm more of a trekker and a hiker, but that's what comes with that. I can't separate them. So
yeah. I can see that. So when you're thinking about your entrepreneurship journey, what are some of the metaphorical mountains that you have hiked, and some of those, you talk about false starts. So what are some of the key milestones where you're like, yes, right, you peaked it, and then the things that you kind of like were the difficult mountains that you were struggling to climb along the way in your entrepreneurial journey?
I could literally spend 2 days answering that question. It's such a fun subject for me. Let me see if I could summarize it. When I joined the fitness industry, I didn't have any fitness background other than having been a member of a club for a long time. So I had a consumer's knowledge. But it was very eye-opening. And, in the mountaineering terms, there's this concept called the false summit, where you're going uphill and you come to a peak that you think is the top, and then you realize there's another peak behind it and another peak behind it. And that's what I experienced as I joined the fitness business. I thought the problem was going to be this, but then when we did this, it was higher, and then it was higher, and it was higher. And it was really challenging to try to fix a company in an industry that I believe is kind of broken and hasn't delivered its promise, which is where the light bulb started to go off. And I'm talking about 15 or 20 years ago. And I said, fitness really should be more like healthcare. Mm-hmm. And by the way, doctors should feel comfortable writing prescriptions for fitness instead of looking down on the fitness business. Yeah. And that's where the idea for Activate really started. It was, how can we move the fitness industry closer to healthcare? And so we didn't coin the term, but we kind of borrowed it. We are trying to reposition, re-engineer the fitness business as upstream preventive healthcare. And that requires adopting policies and principles that are more like healthcare than they are with fitness. Fitness business really doesn't care about outcomes. It doesn't care about compliance. It doesn't care about following the program. And so, our venture is moving us closer to healthcare because of that. And I think on the other side of things, the healthcare industry thinks about prevention a different way. Like, for instance, blood pressure medicine is considered preventive healthcare. Well, to a fitness person, that's maintaining a bad situation.
Right.
Upstream preventive healthcare means prevent the person from needing high blood pressure medicine or heart medicine in the first place, and treat the condition before it even occurs. Prevent the condition from happening. So fitness really at its best is upstream preventive healthcare. But at its worst, it's just people fooling around at a gym, not getting results, and going from gym to gym, pretending they're complying with some kind of a program. So we're trying to kind of move closer to healthcare.
Yep. So let's talk about these false starts a little bit more, because I think that I don't have enough people that come on the show that are willing to be that candid and that transparent about their failures, right? So we all, it's like really cool and trendy right now to say failure's fine, it's great, you got to just fail fast kind of thing. But really, and there's still so many people that think that, everyone should fail. That's part of the process when they're talking about other people, but it's completely different when they're talking about it personal. Or when it's in the rear view mirror 5 years, 10 years ago, it's so much easier to talk about versus if I'm saying right now, I'm really struggling. I'm not sure if I'm able to make payroll next week. So anyway, so just with that context, just tell us a little bit about that journey, because I think that it could be inspiring and encouraging and wisdom for the people that are in the audience today.
Okay, well, I never really admit I failed.
Okay.
I think there's an old adage somewhere, I think it's a football adage, you just run out of time. You haven't lost, you just ran out of time. And I think that that's somewhat true. Not that I've finished every game I've started, but I think, first of all, you have to be relentless to be an entrepreneur, and you have to be able, not only be willing to accept the risk, but I view failure more as a time to rethink and relearn. There's good failures and there's bad failures. If you learn from something that enables you to do the next venture or a reinvention of the idea, that's a good failure. And all of my failures pretty much have been good failures, especially now with this Activate Brain and Body venture. Again, we've been at it for 10 years. We weren't in any hurry. And a couple of our pivots were deliberate because we thought we were ahead of the science and ahead of the market. So we reconfigured a few times, but we've learned something from each iteration of the company we started. So, and fortunately, we had the persistence and the vision to keep at it. And now, we're funded and we're about to come to market after a 10-year journey. Which, by the way, I've got people who have been with me this entire 10-year journey because we share a mission, and we're all driven by what we're trying to do here, which is reinvent the fitness business as upstream preventive healthcare. And in doing that, we also believe that we are radically improving the trajectory of aging. As I said, I fully believe in anti-aging and keeping at work. And I know that exercise and the kind of fitness programs we're creating can keep you young, keep you active, keep your brain sharp, and keep you walking uphill.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does that, right? So most of the people in our audience are either, I think it's interesting because, I can say with 100% certainty that everyone in our audience has this one thing in common, right? Whether they're the entrepreneur, solopreneur, or they're the corporate innovator, or, somewhere in between, we're all aging. And so how does what you're passionate about, how does your cause and everything that you are advocating for affect the business leader, the healthcare leader, the entrepreneur? Like we're all aging, but how does what you're talking about make their life better? How do they benefit?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the basic understanding of fitness. Fitness gives you more energy. So there's that. You need energy. You need to be able to persevere, and the energy of an entrepreneur is critical. But it goes way beyond that. Actually, the kind of programs that we're talking about with Activate actually do create a physiological improvement of your brain. And by the way, so does hiking. There's something very unique going on here. Most of us remember how we were taught that you're born with a finite amount of brain cells and right. You can't do anything about that. Well, in the last 10 years, neuroscience has come a long way. And there's this thing called neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. And we've learned that not only can your brain build new brain cells through certain kinds of exercise, but it's flexible in that it can learn new routines. And when you use your body in certain ways, you're actually building new neural pathways. Those neural pathways control everything you do. So basically, it makes you sharper. It makes you more creative. It makes your brain work better. It improves your spirit. It increases your executive function. It increases your reaction time. It increases your memory. So, if you're getting older, wouldn't it be better to have the memory of a 22-year-old right. and the executive function of an Olympic athlete? And so, and not to say you can completely reverse time, but you can slow it down. You can reverse it if you've not behaved physically, and you can delay the onset of aging through exercise.
So we talk a lot about on the show about commercialization and this whole journey, and everybody's, journey is different and everybody's at a different place in that journey. And what I hear you saying is that when we think of the components of or the recipe for successful commercialization strategy, we think business principles, we think marketing, we think sales. And very often we leave out like the physical well-being, the mental, emotional well-being of our own selves and being able to lead and participate. And what I hear you saying is that this could be a competitive advantage, right? When the founder, when the innovator, when the entrepreneur has a younger mind, body, spirit, stronger, more energy, you're going to win.
You're going to increase the likelihood that you're going to win or be competitive and be able to solve the problems that we all face. Giving up is the province of people who have low energy and don't have the confidence, and fitness gives you that.
So you're talking about the health of the health innovator, and isn't that so ironic, right?
Yeah, it's a real interesting point. And especially entrepreneurs in this day and age, you have a tendency to to work too hard, I think, and neglect yourself. You know,
Yeah.
you eat poorly, eating snack food in front of the computer. And, you know, incidentally, you know how much screen time we're spending right now. You know, you look at your phone, you look at your screen, you look at your television. You know, that actually has a large impact on your brain and your eyesight. And that's why I'm a big proponent. There's a whole chapter in my book about this. If you get outside, what happens is your eyes are controlled by muscles, and those muscles then use the full range of motion. When you're looking at a two-dimensional screen all day and focusing on your phone, your eyes have a tendency to get tight, and the muscles that control not only the focus, but the movement of your eye get cramped. You know how you feel when you've been on a 6-hour plane flight and you stand up and your legs are all cramped? Well, that's what happens to your eye muscles if you're on a screen all day. So you got to get outside and look off to infinity, see greens and blues. And entrepreneurs will be better for doing that by taking care of themselves.
Hey, it's Dr. Roxy here with a quick break from the conversation. Are you trying to figure out what moves you need to make to survive and thrive in the new COVID economy? I want every health innovator to find their most viable and profitable pivot strategy, which is why I created the COVID Proof Your Business Pivot Kit. The Pivot Kit is a step-by-step framework that helps you find your best pivot strategy. It walks you through 6 categories you need to examine for a 360-degree view of your business. I call them the 6 critical pivot lenses. As you make your way through this comprehensive kit, you'll be armed with the tools, tips, and strategies you need to make sure you can pivot with speed without missing out on critical details and opportunities. Learn more at legacy-dna.com/kit. You know, it's interesting. It's very rare that I come across an innovator who is investing in their health and wellness as much as they could or should. You know, like you said, we're usually burning the candle at both ends, feeling like the weight of the world depends on us. Like there's this cause and this mission that we're so passionate about. A lot of times you feel like there's this window of opportunity for fund, for capital, for, you know, new customers, for closing business, et cetera. And just not realizing how counterintuitive or counterproductive, I should say, that can be from actually being able to achieve the ultimate goal that we have set before us. That, you know, to like slow down, to not be on the screen, to go for a walk, to go for a hike, how that could actually give us more of the tools that we need to even be more successful. So you think it's taking something away, but it's actually making more deposits maybe than we realize.
I completely agree with that. I think there's this tendency amongst competitive people to just work harder. And one of the lessons of my 42 years of wisdom is I work smarter, not harder. I mean, I work hard, but clearly I know how to take a break. I know how to refresh my brain. I knew how to get the cobwebs out. And our whole company is like that. It's real interesting. 1/3 of our founders, we have a 10-person team, are personal trainers. And you can't stop them from, you know, practically whipping us to do workouts. And it's every day there's a new a new workout, a new routine, a new brain exercise. And, you know, so, you know, we're our own experimental customer group. We're experimenting with all our brain and body routines on ourselves. Yeah. And it's been really interesting as our journey has been one of not only cultivating the technology and the process of brain health, but working on new fitness routines. And it's all showing. Everybody's getting fitter and more competitive and more creative.
Yeah, you're going to be like a beast as a company out there in the marketplace.
We hope so.
So one of the things that I recall from your book was where you talked about how comfort zones are a trap. So I think historically, innovators are, you know, have a high tolerance for risk. They don't really spend too much time, or like we'd like to think we don't spend too much time in the comfort zone. But maybe sometimes we do, in the sense of like we want to apply the same strategies and tactics that we did for our last business, and because that's comfortable. So just talk a little bit about that, of comfort zones being a trap.
Yeah, it's a safe space, right? And if you're feeling comfortable and safe, there's no growth. So, you know, again, most entrepreneurs like to take some risk, but you have to know, you kind of have to learn how much you're willing to accept. And on a regular basis, you have to stretch it, because if entrepreneurship is about growth, and you have to grow personally, you have to learn. And that's where this willingness to look at failure is important, because when you really stretch your comfort zone, you're probably going to fail. And this has happened to me numerous times on climbs and hikes. You come up against the wall and you have to turn around, but then you go back at it. And so you stretch that comfort zone. And then the comfort zone expands. So gradually what you get comfortable with is a bigger role.
Yeah.
And, that's how your career evolves too. You start out as a junior brand manager. You bump up against your boss's skills, and then you get training and you get better at it. And then you become a brand manager. And then that becomes your comfort zone, and on and on and on down your career. And that happens, in every kind of career. In technology, you get better at what you do by bumping up against this wall, your comfort zone, and forcing yourself past it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The analogy I use, when you get to the point of being comfortable with that, I might take it another step further. I see, in my case, I like going all the way into a crucible. A crucible is really the ultimate exit your comfort zone. It's where you come into a zone where you are being reforged by stress and new experiences and new people. And when you come out of a crucible, you're stronger.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate test of coming out of your comfort
Iron
zone.
in the fire, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I hate those experiences. I'm usually kicking and screaming through the crucible, but I love what's on the other side of it.
That's the nature of it. You're allowed to complain when you're in the midst of a crucible. You're allowed to say, hey, it's really hot. Hey, I'm stressed. And the entrepreneurial journey, it's very tough. You have your up days, your down days, your sideways days. There's days where you just want to shut off. There's days where you want to weep. There's days when you want to feel the joy. Yeah. Right. So it's all over the place. But that's the process.
It could be that whole emotional journey in 30 minutes, right?
Actually, on some days it is. But, that is the nature of this. Yeah. And you should accept it. The advice I've been giving to some people lately is, this is the process. You have to like the process. You might as well enjoy the ride, because you're not going to be that 1 in a million startup or company that everything goes right the first time and you raise all your money in one round 2 weeks after you present your PowerPoint. It just doesn't happen. Lightning only strikes once a year, maybe.
Right.
And there's thousands and thousands of people trying to do the same thing. So don't expect to be the one who gets struck by lightning. You've got to go through the process, and you might as well enjoy it because it's fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love having fun, and doing this show is a lot of fun to me. So that's why I keep investing in it. And meeting great people like you. So you've got a really broad and deep experience and background in sales and marketing. And obviously those are two critical functions of the commercialization process. So is there anything that you can think back in your experience and say, these are strategies or tactics that I recommend? I mean, obviously every business is different, but things that have maybe been key to your commercial success and you being able to move the needle that you would want to share with our audience.
This is not only part of my entrepreneurial experience, but also my big corporate experience. And I'm first and foremost a big picture strategy guy. I can appreciate guerrilla tactics and hacks and all that stuff that a lot of entrepreneurs gravitate towards because they're fun. But I am still driven by strategy. And I think that's where more entrepreneurs need to focus on the big picture. What is your strategy? And basically what that means, especially as far as marketing and sales go, if you get your company or your brand positioning right, if you put it in the right place, everything else is easier. You're not on the defensive. You can find what I call white space in the category or the blue ocean, all those strategic terms. That's where you got to put your company and your brand. And once you've got that, you're not in a share fight. You're not knocking heads with your competitors. And then sales and marketing gets much easier. It's easier to be creative through perfect positioning. And that's where more people need to focus their time, is on the big picture.
Yeah, there's a couple of examples that always come to mind when I think about positioning. The Schlick razors, right? Or Dollar Shave Club.
Oh, Dollar Shave
I
Club is
mean,
a great
when
one
you think,
recently.
right, when you think about this guy just as an entrepreneur deciding I'm going to start a business, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go the biggest incumbents that have such strong brand equity, such deep pockets financially, but I'm going to go in and compete against them and talk about white space and positioning, blue ocean, wow, and stealing market share every single day.
It is one of the best case studies of recent years. I've used it in presentations
Yep.
myself. I used to do a presentation about David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
And I used to be Goliath, but I've learned how to beat Goliath by being Goliath. And now I like the David position. Yeah, Dollar Shave Club is one of the best Davids to come along in a long, long time. I also always think back, Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, before he put that company there, talk about perfect position. There was no competition really, other than the slow. Nobody even thought they needed it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, overnight, cool. So, and that business has reshaped the global economy. Expedited delivery has changed everything. So if you position yourself right as an innovator and you're differentiated and meaningful, and that's the key thing. A lot of people know about differentiation, but they don't differentiate in a way that's meaningful.
If you're just different and it's not something that your target customers value, what use is it, right?
and then what happens is, if it doesn't work, what do? You cut your price, and that's what happens. There's only two basic strategies. It's one of those two, and that's why you see a lot of people quickly failing to hit their numbers, and then they start doing price competition, then they've killed their brand. So it's pretty simple when you think strategically. So many people think tactically and start there. It's a big mistake.
Yeah, I completely agree. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs or innovators reach out to us. They have an idea, and when they're thinking about a agency or a partner, they want to hire us to do a logo, to create a logo or a website. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Have you done all the strategy, right? Do you, like, your messaging strategy, your value proposition, your brand strategy? Like, do you know who you are and how you're going to introduce yourself into the world? How are we going to go from I have an idea to a logo and a website? I mean, that's like a recipe for failure right there.
Yeah, and I think it continues to spiral downward. I think I hate to be critical of the Super Bowl ads, but this was a really low point for me. There was not a lot of strategy behind a lot of that, because most people were focused on the tactic of getting attention. I just want some easy attention, and I think that comes from a generation that's used to social media. Social media is all about hacks to get attention, and there should be some strategy behind it. Sometimes it takes a little longer to do the strategy piece, but I think you have to pull back and ask yourself, what am I doing? Where am I positioned? What am I trying to accomplish? Not how do I get more clicks? How do I get more eyeballs to watch my ad?
Yep. All those vanity metrics.
Yeah, no, I know.
So as we start to wrap up here, I before we wrap up, I would like to have you just talk about, you've done so many speaking engagements in all kinds of different forms and fashion. And then, of course, you have your book that we've touched on quite a bit today. How have you used those speaking engagements and the book in your commercialization journey? How have, and be honest with me, if you're like, well, I love it. I did it. And I'm not real sure that it's had an impact. That's fine. There's no right or wrong answer here. But I'm wondering, in hindsight, when you look back, how are you leveraging those two strategies, if you will?
Well, it's funny you say that. The book launched right in the middle of COVID. And Activate was intending to be open September 1st, 2002, right in the middle of COVID. So we're a year late on all of this stuff. In fact, you talk about speaking engagements. I was set up to speak at a variety of REI stores around the country on my book, which they love, because get outside.
Right, exactly.
That's also their slogan, which was a coincidence. But so let's just say it's not what I expected at this point, but I have a very long-term perspective on these things. The book is evergreen, so it's not like it had to happen last summer. I've relaunched it this year, and we're getting great results, and I'm giving webinars on the book, not speaking engagements. And I think, that's for my personal brand, but I do, it's got the common theme of anti-aging with is what Activate is about. And Activate, we're just starting to as we're getting close to launching on September 1st with a brick and mortar location. And so we're going to be doing a great deal of PR on that. And because frankly, now we've got the vaccine and we're coming out of this thing and people are feeling more comfortable. And I think people need to get back together with other people. Home workouts and using your Peloton and all that, it's great. But it's not the same as being in a community of people working with a personal trainer, and we need that too. So my mission is basically to really affect the way people age, and both in the company and with the book. I think hiking, as I said, is the fountain of youth, and the company we created, Activate, is all about anti-aging and keeping your brain healthy. And if you put your brain before your body, actually the body follows. It works in symbiosis. So that's what my mission is. I've worked in a lot of categories. Some were just jobs, and at the end of the day, I didn't want my marketing career, my entire career, to not have some real meaning. And if I can help reinvent fitness as upstream preventive healthcare, I'll be happy. That's a mission for me.
That's awesome. One last question I want to sneak in here, because I think that I would be amiss if we didn't talk about this. I am blown away that we are in 2021. 13 months, 14 months into COVID, and you are investing in a brick and mortar facility. Let's just talk about that.
Well, it's not solely brick and mortar. We're creating a 360-degree experience, not only as a cushion against potential other problems that would close gyms, but that's the customer experience people want. Yep. They don't necessarily have to be in the gym all the time. Our trainers can reach back into your house and have a consultation or help someone do a home workout. So, and our app will be able to control some of that too. But what we've learned through trial and consumer research is apps aren't enough. People need human contact and they need a coach to really get real results. And again, our company is about getting measurable results, not just on traditional fitness measures, but things like executive function and processing speed and all that. And you can't do that on your own. You really need a coach, and you need specialized equipment, and you need a community. So we have a couple of test locations in Ohio, and we've seen people willing to come back now, even if they start out with the mask. There's less fear. People really right now are ready to get out together. And so hopefully there won't be a reversal of the progress we're making with COVID and people's comfort level. Yep. And we're expecting actually a boom for several reasons. One is
like the open the floodgates, right? It's just like
we're already starting to see it. And the other thing is, I think it's sad to say the last year has culled the weakest companies. So in the fitness industry, I think about a third of them aren't going to make it. And that creates more opportunity for the ones who have survived. So the strongest operators are still going to be out there. And that's happened in a lot of categories, restaurants and any brick and mortar place. The strongest have survived. And I think when people come back, there will be a boom.
Yeah, I completely agree. So the one thing that I want to just to note is one of the things that I think is so important to just talk about your brick and mortar initiative and investment is, I think that sometimes before COVID, healthcare as an industry had this one perspective of how healthcare had to be delivered, right? And we all thought, not we, but, a lot of people thought like, kind of stodgy and stoic that we couldn't do it virtual. Like just people weren't going to be open to it. They weren't going to like it. It had to be face-to-face. Then you're thrusted into COVID climate, whether you like it or not. And you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe we can. And then it seems as though now there's like this mass exodus towards the brick and mortar and the face-to-face, and then just all digital. And I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing, and what I think our audience can glean from this is that there is a hybrid model, Like it doesn't have to be all the old way or all the new way. And so, some customers might like all one or all the other. But I think the takeaway I want to point out is that for us to really think about these hybrid models, because I think that there's a lot of opportunity that we would be missing if we went all back to the traditional way, or even if we just only thought digital only, just right out of the gate.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the side effects of what's just happened is it's forcing experimentation and trial of other business models that will morph the norm into some new normal, right? You keep hearing that term, the new normal, but everything's going to be hybrid at some now. There's all kinds of things happening and there's unintended consequences, and there's also some things that we can't predict. But there's clearly change afoot, and to a risk taker, those are opportunities. That's not scary. That's like, let's just pay attention and figure that out.
Come on, baby.
Let's keep changing stuff until it settles down. But I'm all for that, because I can tell you what I know from experience is, except for, big companies like Amazon, who are very agile, even though they're big, most big companies aren't very agile, and change is scary for them. And they'll be, that creates opportunity for entrepreneurs.
I'm surprised at how all these brick and mortar Amazon facilities, stores I'm starting to see. I don't know if you have any by you, but I've started to, and I was just like, oh my gosh, talk about hybrid. I mean, there must be something to face if Amazon, who's been incredibly successful, being $1 trillion company with digital, who's deciding to do something in brick and mortar.
At this point, who can criticize or anything Amazon has done? It seems like everything works. But what's been amazing to me is, I would bet that somewhere in their equation is you'll be able to buy something in one of their physical locations and it'll be home before you get home. Right. They can deliver so fast. Sometimes I've ordered something in the morning and it's here in the afternoon. So I know. I can't count them out on anything. I think they're probably going to ultimately get into healthcare in some fashion.
Oh, they are.
They already are, right? So I mean,
many levels. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think, it's players like Google and Apple and Amazon that are going to help facilitate or forge more of the acceleration of rethinking and reimagining healthcare with those types of companies getting into the mix.
At the same time, as those companies get so gargantuan, there's always a counter movement, and that is going to create space for smaller companies that can create a more personalized experience. Amazon, they do a great job being personal, but it's digital. And so I do think that as the pendulum swings over there, there's always something over here that you can find that's probably face-to-face, personal, smaller. So I guess it's the benefit of having lived through a couple of pendulum swings. I always see the counter movement start. Right. Just as soon as you think it's maximum digital, something else happens.
Yep. Exactly. All of a sudden, high touch is going to be in.
That's what we're counting on.
Yep, exactly. Well, Martin, thank you so much for your time today. How do folks get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you after the show?
Yeah, I'm all over social media, and I encourage contact. I love LinkedIn connections from people who are interested. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And because my last name is spelled unusually, I'm the only one with that last name. You can find me pretty easily.
That's awesome. Great for your brand.
My brothers, but you'll find me. If you want to find me, just Google me.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dr. Roxy. This is fun and you're great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening. I know you're busy working to bring your life-changing innovation to market, and I value your time and attention. To get the latest episodes on your mobile device automatically, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate everyone who shared the show with friends and colleagues. See you on the next episode of Health Innovators.